Coming up today on JBYC.
Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Superstitions.
And the way Discovery Channel and History Channel, everything treats modern mythology sucks.
All that and more on today's episode of JBYC.
Nailed it, Bob.
Don't.
Jungles bring young
Nailed it,
contestants.
This isn't a game.
Legend is real. The shrine of the silver monkey.
It's an adventure.
Olmec?
Hey everyone, it's Monday, August 12th, 2019. I'm Bobby Frankenberger, and you're listening to episode 19 of JBYC. All right, yes, this is the show where three people who've been friends longer than any of us care to remember or think about get together and talk about what's been in our minds this past week. Every week we have a topic or theme. This week's theme is myths and legends. Yeah, that's right. It's the show where we talk about what you want us to talk about, but we don't actually probably really ever do that. We don't ever talk about the thing that you want us to talk about.
But we try, and that's all that matters.
We try as hard as we can. Let me introduce my fellow co-hosts. First up is Ryan, for no particular reason except that I love him. How's it going, Ryan?
And it's always me. Hello.
Yeah,
I'm always first.
I love you the most.
One.
Yeah, you are.
Number one.
And then also up is the other co-host. That's what we'll call him today. The other co-host. Edge, American Johnson. What's going on?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Sorry, did I bring it down?
Well, you know, I just realized that I have like late '90s Matt Damon hair for some reason.
I was looking at your hair just now too. It's like it's coming. It's like a clamp.
Yeah, it's doing like a
clamping
weird.
Like Leonardo DiCaprio in a historic piece from like 1997. I don't like.
You wanted to say Titanic? Can we not say that?
Yeah, that you can say.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking of Titanic, huh?
Yeah, that's what you
I
were
mean,
thinking.
That
be the
legendary
exact thing.
film.
Yep.
It was a
The
legendary,
film. The legendary epic.
film. Yeah, it was.
Because that one guy fell on the propeller, and we'll never forget.
Do you remember
That's
watching
exactly what I was thinking about.
documentary after documentary about how that movie was made?
Yes, I remember watching them and being like kind of interested, but
Whelmed.
Well,
yeah, I was whelmed. I was like, it's kind of cool that they have that little robot, but they're probably kind of making too big of a deal out of it.
I
See,
thought.
yeah, I remember those.
Do you remember the little robot?
Find
The
the,
little-
Titanic. Yeah.
It was also a little crass, and I mean, I don't know, maybe I was being too conservative, but I was like, because they would take the little robot. I even remember their names. It's like Alvin and Jason Jr. or whatever. Is that correct? They would take the little robots into the Titanic, and they'd be like, "Whoa, look, it's a chandelier." But I'm just like, isn't this like I don't know, a tomb? Are you not being a tomb raider? I don't know.
But it's the Titanic, right? Who cares?
It is the Titanic. Who cares about those people?
I always thought.
That's the Hollywood take.
I do remember thinking something similar. I always thought it was those things always focused so much about what's I'm bad at names. What's the guy's name? The director guy.
Cameron.
Not Kirk Cameron.
Kirk Cameron.
that's the banana.
Cameron?
That's the banana
Not
guy.
Cameron.
Kirk Cameron's the Christian guy, right?
Yeah. He
Yeah.
was.
Used to be on.
He thinks the
was it
banana
not a different
disproves
Cameron?
evolution or something,
Yeah.
or disproves.
It's like
the banana proves that God made all of us.
I'm
Oh,
flying,
the-
Jack.
That's
the great,
bottle cap
Kate. But
nonsense. Yeah.
have you heard
Yeah.
the good news about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ?
Is it not Cameron? Something?
It is. It's
James Cameron.
It's Frank.
Jimmy
Cameron.
Cameron.
James. Okay. I'm kind of
Frank Cameron.
Yeah, I'm kind of
Frank
disappointed we
Cameron.
didn't
James
get to
Cameron's
do the
less
name game.
successful brother.
Cameron Jr.
Anyway,
Casey.
Cameron.
I did think that it was weird that those documentaries focused a lot on James Cameron's excitement about getting to go in the submarine.
Yeah, James Cameron's like kind of endearingly a huge nerd.
Yeah.
Sometimes obnoxiously. But I really think he makes movies just because he likes playing with the cameras more than he actually likes making movies, and he just accidentally made a bunch of great films.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
actually kind of get the same thing from Ridley Scott because I've been watching a couple of things about like Legend and stuff like that, and he has that same kind of like, I just love doing this kind of stuff, yeah, kind of feel. Instead of like an
Ridley
awful-
Scott. I've never actually seen an interview with old Ridley.
I hadn't until I was looking this up. Now
Was
I'm
it
looking up
worth
loud.
was it worth your time? Should everyone
Yes.
watch Ridley Scott interviews?
I mean, the ones about Legend are pretty good. Yeah.
Should everyone go out and listen to a Ridley Scott interview right now? Stop what they're
Yes.
doing.
Yeah, stop what you're doing. Stop what you're doing right now, both of you.
Put your child down. You can give it attention later.
Forget about it. It's only like
No, put your
maybe-
child in your
maybe
lap
it-
and watch a Ridley Scott interview together.
Aliens
it's a bonding
was James
experience.
Cameron and Ridley Scott, wasn't it?
No, you're thinking of Ripley. You're absolutely thinking of Ripley.
No, Ridley Scott.
I did the same
No.
thing in my brain.
No, hold on.
No, I think you're wrong about that.
No, okay, hold on. I don't think it was both of them. No, I think one of them had like Aliens 3 and Ridley
I
Scott.
just typed James Scott into Google.
What
Hold
are
on,
you
we're gonna
doing?
handle this. Ridley Scott.
Is
Well,
Alien.
the first thing that came up is Alien
Alien.
5 in the autocomplete. Alien 5.
Ugh.
Yeah, that's
Ridley Scott and James Cameron's Alien 5.
like
That must
the,
be what you're thinking of.
Yeah,
James Cameron
There's a film
definitely
that I
did
didn't
Aliens.
remember
He did the screenplay for it.
like didn't direct it.
No, I'm just saying that
Right.
they were both involved. So maybe
And then
they-
Josh Whedon had number 4.
Josh Whedon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Josh. Alien Resurrection.
Anyway,
Which
I'm
has
done
a
looking at
scene
this
where
list.
Sigourney Weaver throws a basketball behind her and gets a what do you call it? 3-pointer.
And the crowd loves her for it.
Yeah.
Well, she did it like the first take. That's why I remember it.
Oh yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that legend.
I mean, I think they have
That
video of it. 'cause
Hollywood
the take they
legend.
used.
Yeah.
Do you have you ever tried to marathon the Alien movies? Doesn't work.
No, why would you do that? Don't do that.
Yeah, I don't recommend it. I
There's
tried
like
to do
10
it.
of
one
them.
time.
I assume
I
you're
wasn't like
including all
marathon.
the
I tried to.
Predators.
I guess it wasn't really nowadays. I guess we'd call it binge watch. But I watched the first Alien and I was like, oh, that's pretty good. I should watch the rest. And I watched the second one. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. But then the third one, you just realize it's like
Third
way
one's-
too much aliens.
I think there is some overlap, but there is a distinction between binge watching and marathon watching for sure. Okay.
What's the difference?
Really?
I think binge
what's the
watching
difference?
implies. I think binge watching can be marathon watching, but marathon watching is not always binge watching. Like binge watching to me implies sort of like an excited but irresponsible consuming of of some series of something. But marathon watching can just be I am going to I am going to pointedly, deliberately, and responsibly sit down and watch all the uncut director's cut versions of Lord of the Rings. You know,
So if there's a plan, if it's planned, if it's pre,
if there's a plan,
it's-
if you're being properly hydrated, if you're getting up and walking around sometimes, like.
I mean,
I don't know.
yeah, you
don't know about
you
that
threw
one,
me an
Bob.
American for a
Well,
loop
but there's
there. I
also
don't know about that.
marathon like television shows. TV stations will have marathon
Movie
screenings.
marathon.
Yeah,
or like the Twilight Zone marathon.
So is a CSI marathon on TNT or TBS or whatever it's on, or NBC or whatever? I'm not going to keep naming networks. Is that considered a marathon or a binge watching?
They call it a marathon, and it's
a
a marathon in that situation, regardless of whether or not you're watching it.
Because
I
they
thought the
have
same
declared
thing.
that
It
it
has
is.
nothing
You're
to do
right.
with the-
Ooh, interesting twist on this.
But
Sometimes
someone somewhere in like Toledo's binge watching it.
if a
Oh
if a
my
television
God.
if a television series of reruns is playing on a network and no one's watching it, is it still a marathon? That's
You can marathon. You can binge watch a marathon, but you
Yeah.
cannot marathon watch a binge watch. You
Yeah,
cannot
'cause the
marathon a
words
binge
don't make
watch.
sense.
You can one the other, but you can't other the one. What does that tell us? One day, perhaps science will fully understand marathon and binge watching, but today is not that day.
Maybe there'll be a myth or a legend about it.
perhaps
Legend has it
now
that there is
astute.
a Watcher's Stone that reveals all the secrets
Astute listeners will
See, we're
notice
trying
that
to
we
see that topic. We're
are we missed last week, and that's because I had just come back from.
And we missed you.
Yeah, we missed all of you here, but American had ridiculous internet, and I was happy because I had just come back from Gen Con and I was extremely exhausted. But Gen Con happened. That happened a week and a half ago or so, and that was for those of you who don't know, Gen Con is like a gaming convention in Indianapolis, and I was there, and it was pretty neat, playing lots of board games and
Bunch of nerds
hanging out playing.
What was your favorite thing?
Magic the Gathering. My favorite thing.
Favorite game?
What color
Don't
deck
do
did
the
you
whole
use?
thing then. Like,
What
I like to
color?
run white black usually, unless they're running red. Then
Yeah.
I'll usually go blue.
It
Blue, black, or
pains
blue,
me. It pains me a lot that you know
Aggro.
a lot more about Magic than I do.
Yeah, that's very newly acquired information though.
Yeah.
I went
it's
from
all
0 to
digital,
like
right?
100.
It's not from cards. Like, you don't have it from tangible.
There was a new.
No, I've never
Marvel-
touched a Magic the Gathering card in my life. That's true.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You play it online, right? Or you did?
I played it online.
Yeah.
I got over it.
There was a new Marvel deck building game that was out. I can't remember what it was called. I actually didn't get to
Marvel
demo
the Gathering.
Marvel the Gathering. I didn't get to play a lot of as many
Marvel
games as I
Olympics.
normally do this year. I didn't get to demo as many because I was doing seminars. I was actually performing them.
Sales
do you say
excellence?
do you say performing seminars or
Given.
giving
run
seminars?
or give.
Yeah, okay.
Run a seminar.
I was giving
Yeah.
them. I gave one on
Run a
community
workshop.
building.
You give a seminar.
And
Sales,
I went to a seminar about like sales and stuff.
selling
They're trying to give
yourself
you knives.
as a content creator.
Yeah, they actually
knives.
gave me some oils. If you're interested,
Are they essential?
They're-
or
Are
they're
they
very
beard
essential.
oils? I bet they're beard oils.
if you're interested,
I sell
you can,
non-essential oils. It's
You can, yeah, they're no big deal. They're not really, you know.
don't need it.
You don't really need it, but if you
you want one of these?
if you're up to it, you can buy one,
You
or
don't
you
need-
can,
you
or
don't
you
need
can
to
buy
buy.
some of your own and sell them to your friends.
We call it. The brand is called The Option.
Yeah. Yeah. Did I talk last show? Did I talk about cookies on airplanes? I love cookies on airplanes. That's all there is to it.
You have to tell the story in the Cookie Monster voice.
Cookies.
I was on the airplane.
Cookies and coffee.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, funny story about
satisfied.
Cookie Monster. So I'm.
What?
So yeah, get ready for this. So I was staying in an Airbnb with some of our business partner people, and one of them, our assistant in the Shadowcasters network, her and her husband came into the airport. They were flying into the airport about the same time as I was, and I was renting a car, so we all went together, and I drove us to our Airbnb, and we were getting lost trying to find a grocery store and everything, and I'm like, I can't find it. My Google Maps like isn't taking me to where I want to take it, and so the husband, Max, I shouldn't call him the husband, he's a friend of mine. Max, he says, oh well, I'll pull out Waze, like maybe Waze will work better, and so he pulls it
what's up
out
with Waze?
and he starts doing it. And then we're sitting there, and he goes, "Okay, hold on, I'll put it on speaker." And then we're driving, and all of a sudden you hear, "In 3/4 of a mile, do a U-turn. There be
Cookie
cookies.
Monster voice?
There might be cookies back there. Nom 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 nom." Did
Did it really?
Coming up on the
Yes.
side of the road.
It
An
was,
accident.
it was, yeah, it was Cookie Monster was giving us directions.
There's a cop
God.
2 miles ahead.
Yeah.
We're approaching the end of humanity. We're almost done.
But it was so
can't believe that
suspenseful too.
exists.
Cookie Monster was being a jerk to you because like he goes, we're on this long road and it's straight and we don't know, there's no turns anywhere, and he goes like this. He says, "In 1/2 mile, you will do a U-turn." I was like, what the?
Suspense is
think-
killing me.
Do you think Animal has done one? Because I feel like that would be really good too.
What would the
Just
animal
be
one
like,
sound?
"Rah, rah, rah."
There'd just be a bunch of drums and screaming.
Yeah.
And then you go
I-
2 mile left.
Yeah.
Or you could pay $3 for the DLC of Muppet Babies Animal, which is the same thing, but they just raise the pitch.
Which would be the most annoying
Slightly.
one? The most annoying Muppet.
Not Beaker,
Beaker?
but no, Beaker's friend.
Bunsen?
What's his name?
Bunsen, yeah.
No, Beaker. You're right.
Yeah,
Beaker,
Beaker is
sorry.
the
Bunsen's
squeaky
the
one.
scientist.
If you had both
Beaker
of
would be
them,
the
it
one
might
that
be
would-
good. But if it was just Beaker, it would just be. You'd
Or
never-
Howie Mandel would be pretty annoying too.
Yeah. Maddie Smith says classic Max. Yeah, Matt, he knows Max. Let's move on to this.
You know, kind of a share.
Oh
Now
yeah.
you do it, Edge. Do it yourself because you did it really well before.
It's time for the edge. Edge.
I can't get that much.
You just, you just have to say Edge.
Edge.
Play with that. We'll play with that more off on the after show if everyone really wants to.
So you wanted to talk
You
about
wanna,
Legends of the Hidden Temple?
Hey, I have
did you
a
hear the intro?
$64,000.
Did you hear the intro bit that I
Oh
did?
yeah.
This isn't a game.
Yes, I did.
Legend is real.
I forgot that they made a film
Yeah, I don't
about
remember
it.
any of
That is
that.
2016.
So that's-
there was a Legends of the Hidden Temple Nickelodeon movie.
It was that late.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I did a tiny bit of research and like I watched the intro to Legends of the Hidden Temple, and
Yeah.
in my memory, the voice of Olmec, the god, the cultural
totem.
appropriation god,
Yeah.
yeah, he's like in my memory he had a really deep voice, and he was like, "Welcome to the Hidden Temple." But Bob, if you could maybe pull it up and go to the end of the
I'm
intro
looking.
order.
Yeah.
He's just like a guy. He just has like a normal guy voice, basically. It's not nearly like, because I was a kid, I guess. So to me, all like adult voices sounded deeper.
I mean, I remember it
You know
being
what I'm
very deep though.
You
I
really might
remember
want to
that
skip
noise
ahead.
distinctly.
yeah.
It's a very obnoxious theme, but it does also like trigger deep nostalgia currents in your brain when you hear it. Like you can remember the audio.
Yeah. Here we
I
go.
don't know, maybe because I have like a. Okay, yeah, play it.
Legends of the Hidden Temple.
It's my
Yeah.
temple.
Oh.
It's not. Wow, this is chaos.
Anyway, every show is a different legend. I decide the legend. Kids have to cross the moat, answer questions.
That's real
I
bad.
ask the questions. Whatever you say. No neck. Next are the temple games.
Did he just call him No
You know,
Neck?
like that's a yeah, that's a very. I want to talk about this. This has nothing to do with what I wanted to talk about, but that just
Stop.
reminded me of something. I've never talked about this before.
Uh-oh.
There's a very specific kind of a really bad joke, which is when they make a joke that like you have to only have like it only works in that very specific context of the show,
Mhm.
and see, this is why I wanted to talk about this because
I
I've
got
always
one
wanted
for you.
to try to articulate this.
JBYC you later.
It's kind of like that. It's usually it's in the form of an insult or a quip or something. They do it on Star Trek sometimes. It's almost like it's like they're trying to make a nerd joke where it's like you have to know about the subject matter, but it's also not it doesn't go deep enough. How do I explain it? Because okay, we'll just talk about this example, right? What is so bad about this joke? He says the name of the character is Olmec.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He says
No neck.
no, he calls him No Neck. That's the because he's a maybe this is why it's not funny because it's it's so specific. Like this.
I mean, there's a meta
character
here
doesn't
too,
have
where
a
you're
neck.
like doing the ultimate explanation, which is how you kill jokes.
No, but this is something my brain understands intuitively that this is a terrible way to make a joke, but I've been thinking about this for like 20 years and I've never talked to another human being about it. So please indulge me. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
All right. Go on.
I'm trying.
Continue.
There's situations. Okay, there's another like in Star Trek they'll do it where they'll be like God, I really wish I could articulate this. That's the whole reason I'm talking about this. So like they'll say like
back up, so you can hear it, so you can really like feel it.
Yeah. Do you need to get back in the moment, in the mood?
yeah, do it.
Okay,
Hit
fine.
me. It'd be like it's
Right,
like if
that's where it is. So Boop, 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 boop. Go.
Answer questions.
I ask the questions.
Whatever you say. No neck. Next are the temple games. Cross the moats. Answer
They need a
questions.
laugh track for one thing. That's like a
Yeah,
long
yeah.
pause. After that.
Ask the questions.
Whatever you say. No neck. Next are the temple games.
Okay, all right,
No.
that's enough. Jesus.
I love how much this bothers you.
I can't. You know. So, all right. I guess I'm gonna give up because you two book clearly have no idea what I'm trying to.
Whatever you say. No neck.
Stop it, please,
Yeah,
for the love of God.
I'm definitely
like-
going to be capping
Now
that
it's
out.
giving me anxiety.
We're going to turn it into our inside joke, and it's just going to torture you forever.
Somebody's gonna listen to this one day. Maybe it'll be 20 years from now. They'll like dust off an old laptop that one of us sold at a Goodwill or something, and they'll find this podcast and they'll get in touch with me and they'll be like, "I understand."
Yeah, in fact, why don't we do that? If you're listening, please email us. Let us know if you can help articulate what the Edge is trying
It
to
has something to
articulate.
do with how specific to the situation is and how like it's like such an easy joke and yet it's still a bad joke. I don't know. That's the essence I'm trying to get at, but it doesn't matter. Okay, I have a $64,000 question for you though.
Okay, let's go.
No, hold on. Let me get back in the topic. Okay. Go.
Why does it feel to me, and am I alone in this again? Like I'm often alone in things.
Again.
Why does it feel to me like game shows like the Legends of the Hidden Temple have completely fallen off the map with like our contemporary culture? Now I do know that game shows still run on television, but nobody ever talks about them. I don't ever watch them. I don't know of anybody who watches them. Is it
I'm gonna
just
say
that I'm
first,
not in
you're
the
an
right
outlier.
social circles?
I think you're an outlier for
So
sure.
you watch game shows, Ryan? Or you
No,
or what?
but I don't
I'm,
have
I'm not
TV,
being a
so. Let's
Oh.
ask the other one. He has a television.
Yeah, I don't watch game shows, but I mean, I'm aware. So my first thought was, well, you know, streaming platforms have changed the way television works. But even streaming platforms like Netflix has game shows on it. There's like,
Oh my God, does Netflix have game shows on it?
yeah,
Hold
they
on.
do.
People
How-
do watch sort of game shows like the Great British Bake Off and those kind of shows.
So
Well,
is
I was
that
going to
the
ask,
new
is
game
like
show?
Hell's Kitchen
Yeah.
a game show? Because Hell's Kitchen's like half reality, half game show.
Yeah. So how do you distinguish a game show from a reality competition show, or is there a distinction?
In my opinion, or at least my initial opinion, you can change my mind. You know, with the coffee cup, change my mind, that asshole.
Yeah.
Anyway, a game show has to be like on a set with a host. There is a specific game that gets played in every episode, or at least like, because the one exception to that would be like The Price is Right, you know, where they have a lot of games, but there's still a strong theme, and also they're abstract kind of.
So
Because like in Hell's Kitchen, oh, and also it has to be very. I think that the rules have to be pretty clearly defined.
Mhm.
Like it is a game, like a board game, or a, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
Hell's
like-
Kitchen doesn't match because first of all, Gordon Ramsay has a lot of like subjective, like decision making in the process. They are they're being judged more on like their character and their talent, not
right.
the rules of the game.
So
make sense?
Jeopardy is the one that you're thinking of.
Well, yeah, Jeopardy has like very specific rules. It's very formal and
followed.
structured.
Everyone loves it still.
Wheel of Fortune, it's like the same thing every time.
Mhm.
Price is Right is probably the most like. Is there a more sophisticated game show than The Price is Right? Using my criteria, I mean,
So I think.
well, the
Jeopardy-
Nickelodeon ones like
Pure.
Double Dare mixed it up a lot. But also, you don't really. The other thing, I think this might be important. What do you think? You don't really get to know the contestants very well.
Mhm.
It's not so much about who they are. It's more, you know what I'm saying? Like you get 2 or 3 sentences at the beginning, and then they have. I think the host is more important somehow in a game
I
show.
don't know. Like classic game shows like matchmaking and stuff like that are all about the guests.
That's a good matchmaking. Almost is like ahead of its time, huh?
I think they did try to do
It
that
was
again,
like-
for sure.
It was like the original reality show,
MTV.
kind of. I never thought about that. Like, yeah, that's pretty interesting. What do you think, Bob?
So,
Were matchmaking shows in like the 1950s and 60s, were those reality shows?
That was such a pure. What do you think, Bob? Like you were
sort of.
genuinely about that.
So I think you're hitting on something there. I think there's like a proto, like nugget of reality show, because like the whole point of the match game was you're looking at real people really interacting with each other in a real way, right? Like there's a genuine authenticity to what was going on. Like
Yeah.
So I think you've got something there, because a lot of game shows for sure feel pretty fake and pretty manufactured, right? Because and in many ways they were,
They absolutely were. Actually, we jumped ahead a little bit, but I was going to start by saying, like, game shows originally, they used to be like a huge part of television, like one of the dominant aspects of television. And then in the 1950s, they found out that the quiz shows like the $64,000 question, for instance, were rigged. Do you know about this whole thing?
Yeah, wasn't there a guy who figured it out? Like,
no, the story is so much more interesting than I ever imagined. There wasn't a guy, there was a woman. Have you ever heard of a little known person named Joyce Brothers?
Yes, absolutely. I certainly have.
Yeah, Joyce Brothers is like the first pop psychologist, basically, that was like on television and radio a lot, and gave like a psychological advice and that sort of thing. So Joyce Brothers started out and became famous initially because she was a contestant on the $64,000 question, I believe, and they set the way that they would rig this particular show was they would if they wanted you to lose, they would ask you questions that they just knew you would never be able to answer. That was their like strategy. So it wasn't like they didn't like collude with the contestant, but they had this whole thing in the background where they're like, okay, we're gonna let this person win tonight, so we'll ask them some easier questions. And then they're like, okay, we want this person to lose, so we'll ask them really hard questions or whatever. So Joyce Brothers goes on, and it was very much like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, where they would like ramp up the difficulty of the questions and the money would go up and up and up. But Joyce Brothers was like answering all the questions, and they asked her, like, they thought they would nail her with a boxing question, because they're like, she's a woman, she doesn't know nothing about boxing, right? But she like answered that correctly too, and she won the $64,000 questions, and that basically somehow led to the whole thing unraveling and everyone losing trust in the game shows and finding out they were all rigged and that sort of thing. But I just think that's so interesting that that's how Joyce Brothers got famous, and she like went on to have this really amazing long career as like a pop psychologist. It's such an interesting story.
It really is.
It's like
that is really interesting. But like in a lot of ways, so something you said before made me think of another parallel between game shows and reality television, and that is game shows used to be so popular not just because people like to watch them, but also because they were relatively, after the initial setup cost, they were relatively cheap to produce. And that's like the formula for reality TV nowadays, right? Like it's cheap to produce, and
right.
lots of people
that's an
watch
excellent
it.
point.
Yeah.
Oh, there was I watched, maybe the film was the film Quiz Show, maybe. Yeah, I think that was because I saw some movie about it involved Matchmaker too. Are you thinking? Do you guys know the movie I'm talking about? There's a movie where it's talking about like the guy who started Matchmaker, and he goes through his whole career. But he started out as like a underling at the studio, and he's like, "Hey, I have this idea for a show. It'd be really cheap to make." And they're like, "Oh, it's cheap? Okay, kid. Here's your production credit." And they like let him do it.
This
But
sounds
that is
really
absolutely
familiar to me. Like I feel.
I know. If anyone in the audience knows the movie that I'm thinking about, let us know. But speaking of in the audience, we've got River Ransom, who apparently is a big classic film and television buff like me. And had some observations. And I was actually going to talk about, first of all, Groucho Marx, who also had some sort of like reality aspects to when he did his quiz show, which was You Bet Your Life. He would like interview them as they were going along, and if anybody's ever bored and you like want to laugh a little bit, like Groucho Marx was actually really funny, and he's like a super quick wit. And he would my favorite joke he ever did was so the quiz show was like, he would interview them throughout the contest. And so he'd be asking them questions and stuff. So he's talking to this one woman, and he's like, so you married? And she's like, yes, with like 7 kids. And he goes, 7 kids? And she goes, I love my husband. And he goes, I love my cigar, but I take it out every once in a while. And this was in like 1956 or something. He was like,
that's funny.
he got a lot of trouble for that. But that was just a side note. But yeah, also they had those Guess the Person shows, which kind of like game shows. They were actually probably more like reality shows, because I don't think there was there might have been little prizes or whatever, but it was more about, do you know what I'm talking about? Like who
Yeah.
would the real Bobby please stand up?
Yeah,
They did those kinds of things.
And didn't they? I have this image in my head of they had like the silhouette of the person, and
Yeah, I think those are 2 different shows. Yeah, that's a show where it's like there was one show where you're trying to guess who somebody is that was from your personal life. Like they would go find like your teacher from the 3rd grade.
well,
or
that is
your
that
long
is
lost
just
cousin.
that was a different show. You're right.
And they also had the dating game where like 3 guys were behind. You couldn't see them, and they were asking questions
Yeah.
about them to figure out who you wanted.
I think
to go
that was
out
the original match game, I think. And then you're right though that it is kind of funny how MTV rebooted the whole matchmaking game with the really, remember in the 90s it was like the really
Carson
like
Daly.
edgy version.
Yeah, Carson
Yeah,
Daly.
Carson Daly. You're right. What was the name of the show?
Can't remember.
Oh, Carson. I'm gonna find
It
out.
was not Love Line. That's the call-in one.
Yeah, that's the call-in show.
It's something like that. It was Carson Daly, Jenny McCarthy, Carmen Electra, and then whoever they got on the show.
Wow, there's
That
apparently
should
a
be
lot
enough
of
information
MTV
for
dating
you. Just
shows.
be able to find that.
Yeah, Singled Out.
Yep, that's it.
Singled Out. That's right.
Yeah.
It was like edgy because they'd be like, "Do you like to have sex? We're on MTV. We can
Yeah.
say that."
Which one do you like better? Sex in the back of a car or
Ooh, that's the audience.
Yeah.
No.
yeah. I think so. I think
I used to have to watch that show with the volume turned down because my mom would yell at me if I watched it. I remember.
I think the answer might be that that reality TV
Apparently not Carson Daly, by the way.
has
That was,
is largely responsible for the death of the game show.
what was? I missed the most important, the subject of the sentence.
I think that reality TV may be responsible for the death of the game show if the game show is dead. Because I mean, there are game shows out there. There's a lot of the old ones are being revived and brought. There's like
No, that's what I was going to talk about too, because like apparently, yeah. So I'm going to read this section from the Wikipedia article, okay? And you tell me if this doesn't sound really weird to you, and then tell me why it sounds weird if it does.
Okay.
During the later half of the 2000s and the first half of the 2010s. No, that's not the part I wanted to read. Okay, hold on. Okay, this is the part that's really weird.
Okay.
A boom in primetime revivals of classic daytime game shows began to emerge in the mid 2010s. All right, this is a short paragraph. I'll finish it soon. In 2016, ABC packaged the existing Celebrity Family Feud.
Mm-hmm.
There were new versions of To Tell the Truth, the $100,000 Pyramid Match Game in 2016. TBS, in turn, launched a marijuana-themed revival of The Joker's Wild, hosted by Snoop Dogg. All right, I'm going to stop there. Does that sound like a weird paragraph to you?
I've seen that show, and it wasn't bad.
The marijuana Snoop Dogg game show?
Yes, it wasn't called. It's called Joker's Wild. There's no marijuana necessarily in it. It's just because
It says it's a marijuana. Is that a? So did somebody edit the Wikipedia? It's not
no.
marijuana.
It's
themed?
like no. It's yeah.
It's marijuana
Like,
themed
it
because
has
Snoop Dogg is on it.
colors. Yeah, it's not like about marijuana.
It's like Snoop Dogg's soap is like marijuana themed soap because it's Snoop Dogg's.
Yes,
Right.
actually, exactly like that.
Right.
That's actually really. Man, imagine if you were like that into something, you know?
On brand. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like Snoop Dogg and marijuana are kind of like the same category.
Yeah.
Almost.
That's a good observation. Let's
Before you go too far, like
Yeah.
the UK still has these shows though, and the panel show variation. So like 8 out of 10 cats.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, the UK
Countdown,
does-
stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Never mind a Buzzcocks, QI, like a
QI
bunch
is a
of
good
panel
one, yeah.
shows.
Wow, Ryan, you know a lot about British game shows.
I know 4. Like,
Bravo.
get us out of here.
All right, here we go.
Dang it, Bobby, that's exactly what we don't want.
I wonder what kind of superstitions do you guys? We're talking about myths and legends, right? And that made me think of superstitions. What kind of superstitions do you guys have?
I still pray sometimes.
Ooh, that does remind me of something I wanted to talk
1-star
about.
review from everyone in America.
So in high school I went through so Greek gods came before the Christian gods. So I'm gonna pray to these guys instead, period. Like in 8th grade.
Were you being
I was
ironic about it, or were you being?
No, I was being like if the gods are supposed to be like this infallible thing, and these ones were before those ones.
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't remember
That's
you telling
not
any-
bad
I don't
logic.
remember that about you, so you must have really done this in your private life, you know?
Did you have an altar to like?
No,
Did
I
you
wish
pick
I
a
had
particular
fucking altar
god,
to
or did you
use
join a
the-
cult of like I don't know, Aphrodite?
Bacchus.
Did you join an Aphrodite
Yeah.
cult?
Which-
Bacchus?
No.
Which Greek gods
Nope.
were you interested in?
I
Who's your favorite?
cannot remember. It was more
Who's
of
your
like
bae?
a general. Who's your waifu? Who's your husband?
Yeah, who's your Greek goddess wife?
But no, it was just like this couple week thing. And I was just like dumb high schooler. So I was like, okay, yeah, well.
In hindsight, do you wish that it was Dionysus that you worshipped?
No, that would have
Stand?
gone terribly because I would have killed you all and eaten your entrails and had a party in the woods.
Whoa!
Yeah.
There's clearly
what
a lot
Bacchus
I
is all
don't know
about,
about the god of wine.
Really?
Ryan wasn't fooling around.
He was
really know your
Bacchanalians,
shit.
yeah. No,
Wow.
you guys don't know that kind of stuff. So Bacchus, his throng of
We
people.
never worshiped the Greek gods, Ryan. So we,
Okay, sorry, I
a
didn't
little out
know
of
we
the loop.
all didn't have a Greek god phase. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Another part
scared
to
now.
that. I can't remember the exacts of it, but basically, oh no, I do remember. So Zeus was basically having a side girl, and Hera got really upset about that, as she does. And
Yeah.
so she was like, "Hey, yeah, well," she started getting to be a friend of this person. I think her name was Celine. I can't remember. And so she's like, "Oh yeah, well, if you guys are so great, then he'll have sex with you in his real form." And so his real form ends up being like a lightning bolt. So Celine's like, "Oh yeah," well, she's not knowing that. Like, "Yeah, if you really love me, you'll have sex with me in your god form," which he does, and he blows her up literally.
wah,
But
wah,
He
wah.
I'll
plucks
show
the
you.
he plucks the unborn child from her womb and sticks it into his thigh. Thigh is a Greek euphemism for penis. So then he births Bacchus from his thigh.
Whoa. Well, but you know what? Really serves her right for pulling that asshole move of if you loved me, then come on.
Hey,
I mean, there's a lot
listen,
of those tales of Zeus. Where
this reminds me of something that I think we can talk about. I think we can all be mature adults about this.
Hold on. Let me think about this. For
So
a
I
minute.
was reading the Wikipedia article on semen.
What
Okay,
kind
I
of
fucked
ship?
up. I'm the one that
Like-
lost it.
Yep, you,
like on
you
naval
lost.
ships or
No, like seminal fluid. But it was talking about how like a lot of ancient religions like saw semen as like really magical and having magical properties,
It
and
does.
like
Go on.
there are a few different cultures that believe that rain is like a god's semen raining down onto the earth, and then it impregnates the earth, and that's where plants
Wow.
are like the birth of the earth.
Who
Well, I mean,
who came up with the idea that rain was God's tears? That was probably the Christians, isn't it? Boring.
yeah, it's some.
Well, you know
whatever.
that they used to the Greeks believed that like semen was very closely related to the eyes, and that semen came from the eyes. Like it just
What?
worked its way down.
Well, you mean like the humorous kind of idea, or like you have?
No, they actually thought that semen came from the eyes.
Oh,
Like it was
Okay.
it was like and they thought it was the
Were
most.
they just like not paying attention during sex?
Well,
No, I mean like they thought there was a
not from
tube or something.
inside. Yeah.
Oh, there was just
network-
like there was a tube connecting your eyes to your ball sack.
Hold on, baby.
I don't
had
think
to
that,
cry.
I don't even know
Like,
if they thought the ball sack had anything to do with it.
What did they think it was for?
I don't know. It's for the pee. Pee is in the balls.
You're right though. I saw recently also like the Egyptians, like ancient Egyptians, that like Rod, it's like yeeted the universe into existence. So
Why are we talking about that?
this is kind of how most like ancient myths are, legitimately. Like, okay, there's a good one in like Viking, and like Thor and Loki are trying. Okay, they get really drunk. Thor loses his hammer. A bunch of frost giants steal it, as they fucking do.
Frost
So they
giants, am I
try.
right?
They're like, okay, Freya, help us get our hammer back. Go marry this ice giant. We'll have a big party and we'll get it back during the party. She's obviously like, no, I'm not doing that. So they dress up Thor as a girl, as Freya specifically, get him to go. During the party, they have this big bad wolf deal where it's like, oh, Freya, you're drinking and eating so much. What? And she's like, oh, my appetite, my love for you is so great. And like, oh, you're the red in your eyes. That's so like, what's that rage? She's like, oh no, I'm so thinking about you so much.
Happy to see you with, my dear.
Yeah. And then eventually they get drunk enough and everyone passes out. Thor gets his hammer. He kills a bunch of ice giants, whatever.
Wow.
These are like myths. All these ancient myths are kind of like this kind of stuff. It's wonderful. Sobek.
It really makes you realize
River
like
Ransom
how
said Sobek. I think that's a crocodile, which a whole bunch of weird stuff.
Why isn't there a television series that is just literal retellings of these myths?
I know, right? I always thought they should do if they did a film and it was like, don't change anything to make it more relatable for modern audiences. Just do a straight up these like a story of the Greek gods.
Rated
and do it
MA.
Yeah,
No,
and like
X.
do it exactly like it actually was, and don't change any, because like they always modernize shit. You know, like they try to make the stories more contemporarily packaged, and but it's like, no, just do it exactly where like they turn into a goose and then they have sex and then blah blah blah. Like just really get weird with it. I mean, you know, you could. It probably wouldn't be a blockbuster, but I bet you could turn a profit on something like that. Maybe like get one of those cheap 3D animation studios to do it. You know,
I didn't know where you were going.
The ones in I mean, that we could do it here. We could hire a Vietnamese animation studio to make our wonky, weird, disturbing
retelling
eyeball
myths.
semen movie.
Eyeball semen movie.
So
don't ever say that again.
So we're
Superstition.
That's a category in Pornhub, I'm sure. So
he punched me in the eye. I will never have children.
So we're talking about superstitions, right? At this very moment.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Superstitions. Do you know what superstitions psychologically? Superstitions have a definition. It's when well, you know, like it's been defined, like superstitious behavior and superstitious thought has been defined by psychologists.
You're saying that in the psychological lexicon it has a specific
it has an operational definition
from our vernacular.
Mm-hmm. It's not so much that it differs, but it's well, let me explain. So a superstition to a psychologist is a behavior that is learned, that it is believed. It's some sort of behavior that the individual believes has an impact on the outcome of some event, but it's unrelated to the outcome of the event. But in that moment, they learn, quote unquote, learn that it does have an impact on the outcome of the event, and therefore they continue to believe that behavior has an outcome. So the classic example is
if you work really hard under capitalism, you'll succeed.
Here we go. For those of you who were hoping, if that was the last spot on your bingo card, speak up now.
I got semen and I got capitalism. Got it.
JBY Singo. We should actually just make the cards and distribute
we should.
them.
But no, so the classic
around the
example in psychology is if you have pigeons in a Skinner box and you just they would have these, they would put the pigeons on a feeding reward schedule that was just random. They would just randomly give these pigeons food at random intervals, right? But the pigeons
Have some food, you pigeon.
there would be things inside the box, maybe like a button or a light or a thing that the food fell down in, and they would notice that the pigeons would just by chance, accidentally, maybe like peck at the button, and then by chance a piece of food would drop down. And so instantly those pigeons start to think that pecking that button
superstitious.
Yeah, and it doesn't, and they would peck the button a bunch over and over and over again, and no food would come down, but they still believed, quote unquote believed, like you have to assume that they believed, right? But they still believed that it was causing the food to come down, and in those like classic conditioning paradigms, it's much harder to unlearn a behavior than it is to learn it. We as creatures, as animals, learn behaviors much more quickly than we unlearn them. So so they called that superstitious behavior, and so you can see like how that translates to regular like making sure you wear your lucky socks before you play a baseball game or something like that. So do you have any superstitions like that?
I'm really trying to think, because as you were saying that, I was thinking like, do I have any legit superstitions? Like, I probably do. I might have some that I'm unaware of.
Yeah.
Do you, Bob?
I was thinking about this earlier because it's hard. Like if you're aware of it, it almost feels like you shouldn't succumb to it, but I guess you can. I think I do this weird thing whenever like a new video game comes out that I want to play really bad, like when like a Zelda game, or just like a game that I'm excited about getting ready to play, and I'll have it downloaded and everything, and I'm ready to play. I'm ready to get down and just dive in and sit down and play for a bunch of time, but I will do all the chores around the house before I sit down and do it. Like everything, I'll do the dishes.
That's more of like a ritual, though.
But he's doing it so he thinks that it'll keep him from being interrupted.
Right. But I think it is, though, closer to a ritual, but that's the closest thing I can think of, because I don't think it's superstitious, right?
Well, you don't think it's good. Like, it would be a superstition if you thought, if I clean the house, this game is going to be awesome, but if I don't, I'm going to hate the game. That would be a
think you're right. I
superstition.
think it's closer to a ritual because I'm doing it as like
or a habit.
No, because it works also if I clean the house, then no one will bother me for a couple hours. I can play this game in peace.
Well, that's just
But that's obviously not true. Like
I think that's
you'll still
rational
be bothered.
preparation. It's like if I go camping, I'm like, well, I should bring some water because I might get lost. That's not really a superstition. It's like
But that's
but
the
like
closest thing I
preparation
could come
for-
up with. I don't know that I really have any legit
I think. Okay, hear me
superstitions.
out. Hear me out on this. I think I'm too lazy to have superstitions. It takes effort. Like, for instance, if I wanted to
You
like,
have to believe
if I really
in
believed
things.
that, well, if I thought that, like, okay, if I wear my lucky underwear, then I'll always win at poker, But like, if those underwear are like dirty or I can't find, I mean, there's no way I could stick to it. You know what I mean?
Right. You would quickly
dedication.
disillusion yourself because you'd be too lazy to put the underwear on, and then the good thing would happen anyway.
I'd be like, well, these underwear are here, and my lucky underwear are all the way over there. All right, I don't believe this anymore. Like, that would be like,
This is too inconvenient for me to believe.
I think my brain, if I have like anything going on with my brain, it's just that I just want to avoid any effort, even the merest effort. So I
Right.
think superstitions require a bit of effort. I don't know.
I get the feeling.
Oh no, well, okay, this might be a
I don't know
superstition.
about effort, but yeah.
When I drive by a cop, I always avoid their eyes. I never look them in the eye because I feel like if I look them in the eye, they'll pull me over.
Okay, I think that's closer to superstition for sure.
But there is the chance that like they'll notice me more because we made eye contact. That's kind of a strong, like eye contact is a strong psychological thing.
Well,
I mean, tell me, does it sound like I'm being super? Sound like it's
It's also it's like
reasonable
when
thing to do.
when someone sees a cop, they're like, "Oh man, I'm good to speed after I get by this cop," kind of stuff, and they're like, "There's no logic to that. but
That's
I don't
for
think it's
sure a
superstition either.
mathematical superstition for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just I don't
Yeah.
wouldn't call it a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
superstition. No, it's just
I think that's just
false.
a fallacy for sure.
Yeah.
That's like the gambler's fallacy is kind of what that's close to.
When I
get-
gamble, I have superstitions. That's for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Here we go.
When I
Okay,
gamble, I have,
so-
yeah. If I play craps or whatever,
do you
there
like
are
blow
like
the dice or do you like
well,
tug your earlobe or something?
no. Here's what my superstition is, and I absolutely in my brain
Ooh, I thought of one.
know for a fact that this isn't true. But when I'm playing craps, for instance, I'll be like, oh, this is a really hot table, and I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna stay at this table. It's really hot, you know.
Yeah.
And then if it starts going south, I'll be like, oh, this table's cooling off. I'm gonna go to another
Okay.
table.
Yeah.
And like as I'm thinking that, I'm like, I know that that's bullshit, but I still do it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
So
legit.
yeah, that's for sure a superstition.
For
I have.
sure, yeah.
Legit.
Absolutely. Ryan, it sounded like
When-
you said you thought of one.
When I do the egg machine in my phone game for random chance, like it's like 0.3 chance of getting a good character in this Puzzle and Dragons game, I definitely rub the hell out of the dragon egg machine as like a superstition.
That's
on
like the most
head,
wholesome superstition.
on the head, all up in that
Yeah.
belly, and it doesn't do anything. Never has.
You're like warm in the dragon's belly.
Yeah, I'm like,
You
oh
gotta
yeah.
warm it up.
No.
Fire it up.
That's awesome. I would have figured that Ryan, you were too nihilist for a superstition.
I'm not nihilist.
Yeah, that's why I think it's so endearing.
Yeah.
That's like the most adorable Ryan
I
story.
would have
I've ever
figured
heard.
Ryan would have been like, the universe doesn't
I mean, I
give
do
a
all
shit
sorts of
about
stuff
me.
like I say sorry when I stub my toe on like an appliance. Like I don't think it's a superstition, but it's also like definitely not nihilist.
Apologizing
angry
to
at-
an appliance. Yeah.
Oh,
That's not really
apologizing to
superstition.
inanimate objects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I get angry at inanimate objects, like legitimately angry at them.
That's not
I get
superstition.
angry
if I
That's
stub
just,
my toe on a
that's just
outside.
your rage problems.
If I get
Yeah, that's
tripped by
true.
like a sidewalk, I'll look back at it and like not angry, but like why'd you do that to me? Kind of.
Yeah,
way.
yeah. Anthropomorphization.
What'd I ever do to you?
Yeah.
Anthropomorphization.
But it's not. It's more just weird habits than superstitions.
Yeah. I think that's good. This was a good talk.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Maybe if we have this talk
everybody
again, we'll
do
get
the
like more
robot.
subscribers.
Hey, Ryan, what's up?
Hey, I just really hate shows like Finding Bigfoot and like Ghost Hunters.
Yeah,
and
let's
stuff like
complain
that.
about that. I think we should.
Okay, so like it's actually the only one I really hate is Ancient Aliens because it's like
Is that the one with the guy, the meme guy?
It legit. Yeah, the meme guy. Yeah.
The guy, the whoa aliens.
Can
guy?
I guess why you hate it, Ryan?
you will have
I
it.
think I know
It's
why.
the same reason why you don't like it. Yeah, go.
Is it because it actually does like make people believe bullshit that actually does material harm to the world?
Yes, more that it purports this false narrative of like the ancient peoples were incapable of doing this. They had to have been
Yeah.
aliens.
Have you seen the meme that's like, just because white people couldn't figure out how to build the pyramids doesn't mean aliens did it?
Yeah.
Right.
And also like the pyramids is such a good example because it took like thousands of years. Like it's nuts like how long
Yeah.
it took to build those things. Like wow. And then like the modern
Yeah.
ones like Finding Bigfoot where like people some of them I'm sure are milking it, but like I'm sure also a lot of people are like we're gonna find Bigfoot this time. We got it. I don't know why I did a voice like that. That's mean. But, like
It's pretty accurate. I don't know.
I just hate the idea. Like this is what television, like Discovery Channel and History Channel, have become.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's just.
I think
so-
I kind of grew out of those, but I used to really love, like when I was a kid, I would go to the library, the school library,
Mhm.
and I would always check out like UFO picture books and Bigfoot books and stuff. And
Yeah,
I would
for sure.
watch like, do you remember this is a weird thing that this actually existed, and I'm sure this will relate to all of our younger people in the audience. But remember in the 90s, there was this show called Sightings, which was hosted by Henry the Fonz Winkler,
Yes, I know that.
the guy
show
who
for
played
sure.
the Fonz,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
he's actually really into like paranormal stuff. So he produced the show called Sightings. I watched that every time it came on, and it was
Well,
like a
I
news
don't-
show, and it was like very much presented as if this was all fact. It was very
See,
weird.
like cryptozoology, I think is super cool, but it's also like very much like modern myth. Like, I don't think the
Yeah.
lizard man, a big thing in South Carolina, is like the lizard man. It's like, no,
Yeah.
there's no lizard man. Maybe someone saw a big alligator one time and freaked out.
I think
So,
that's
like,
why I kind of grew out of it, because I used to say like in my head I'd be like, well, maybe there is a Bigfoot, and I like, you know, when I was a kid, I was a freaking kid, so I just entertained the notion a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a lot of the like Chupacabra shows and the ones about the Nazca lines. Those were always really interesting to me. Yeah.
well, that's the same Ancient Alien thing where it's
Yeah.
like, there's this really cool thing these people did, and fuck them, aliens did it. I'm like, what are you doing?
That's interesting to me that because I've said it before. You guys all of course know this, but I follow the skeptical community a lot. They talk a lot about these kinds of things and debunking these kinds of things. But I've never heard anybody I've never heard anybody's beef with it be the what you said, the fact that, like, guys, your insistence that this is aliens is totally like downplaying the achievements of these ancient cultures and stuff like that. I've never.
Well, and often it's the achievements of non-white cultures, which is a big part of it. Which this is like, what?
It's like Stonehenge. Yeah, I mean, you know, white people built. Of course. Nobody's going to argue with that. They might have talked to some aliens.
Like,
At best, they just did some consulting.
oh, like
they brought in some temporary alien.
Maddie Smith in the chat says BF without the lore is nothing. That's kind of my point also. We're like, these would be less egregious errors, these shows, to me, if like when you're watching River Monsters and they're trying to find whatever weird giant devilfish, they also talk about like the actual giant fish that are weird and stuff like that. And it's like, just do a little bit instead of like this is cheap like ploy. Like Ghost Hunters is the worst because it's just like literally like, oh man, did you hear that? And then they play something reversed, extra echoey with like the boost gain.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? It genuinely irks me, and like also in like the more like skeptical way where it's like, okay, yeah, this is just obviously nonsense, but like also in just like it's actively harmful.
Well, yeah, and well, so there's other stuff like with the alien shows that are similar to that, where they're like, look at this photo, experts can't tell whether or not it's fake or whatever. And like when I was young, I wanted to believe that like spaceships were visiting Earth so much that I would like not allow myself to have.
That's
any
what
doubt.
a lot of what's happening there, right? Is that they're just playing into people's
desire,
their biases, their
a more interesting world. Yeah,
exactly. So it's I don't know. A lot of people say like, what's the harm with believing in searching for Bigfoot and everything? But I think that the harm is these bigger harms, these larger pictures. Like, yeah, maybe, you know, whatever, go into the jungle and look for Bigfoot. I don't give a damn. But like, you're just wasting your time. But when you recruit people, when you tell other people, like when you make these shows about it, and you're the downstream effect, the harm is that you're like you're harming people's critical thinking ability, right?
It's how you get people.
You're
like
training
Ben
people.
Carson when he like thought that the pyramids were grain silos.
Right.
I don't know
Yes,
where the hell he picked
yes.
that up, but he picked it up from somewhere.
It's
Right.
like an
It wasn't from a
indoctrination
history
into
book.
magical thinking. It's
Yes.
like it's like you're teaching somebody like science, and you're teaching people how to. You're giving people like this set of analytical tools, but they're the wrong analytical tools.
Right, and that's one of the ways that it's super dangerous, is that it's pseudoscience, right? In pseudoscience, it's called pseudoscience because it closely and very deceptively and very dangerously resembles science. And it puts on the guise of science, the facade of science, and it teaches people like they think that they're being scientific, but they're not. And
in the chat, they're talking about Jordan Peterson and DNA. That's probably right now the most dangerous form of like pseudoscience and magical thinking. that exists, I would say.
I'm actually not familiar with Jordan Peterson. Maybe I should be. But...
So you should not.
So Jordan
You should not
Peterson.
Google it
Yeah,
either.
you should not.
Incognito.
well,
Google. Like, it won't
He
hurt
does a
your-
lot of pseudoscience. Like, well, the best thing, Bob, I think I can give you an example of is he does this like meat diet thing.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Where he'll like just only eats meat and like he says that it makes him an alpha male or something.
Oh
He's
my
also
gosh.
the one that's like, he's like, I also don't know a ton, so it's gonna be hard for me to say this, but like the like incel community being like, he said, I believe like, oh yeah, we should make monogamy like mandatory, like you should have a girl given to you, kind of weird shit like that.
That's
So,
where I've heard the name before, I guess, is in relation to incels. Is that
Yeah.
okay.
if you clean your
Jordan
room
Peterson?
and like do positive, oh, I might be thinking of the
Yeah,
wrong
yeah.
person. But,
Jordan
like, do the
Peterson's the clean room guy. Yeah.
Yeah, and like then he also has the lobster thing, I think, if that's him also.
Well, so
Like,
yeah, his whole thing, it's kind of like
Ah.
this weird thing where he starts out, he has this book called 12 Rules for Life, and it's like just normal like self-help stuff, like clean your room and never tell a lie and make your speech precise. It's like very banal, harmless advice,
Mhm.
but he weaves it in with like this really terrible racist reactionary shit.
Yeah.
So by the time you get into it, because you start like, and what's happening is these guys, they're mostly young white men, and their lives are like shit because they're like totally alienated.
Or they're just
in reality
alienated,
due to
like
it.
maybe not even shit.
Yeah.
They're just alienated and they're lonely. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they follow the advice that Jordan Peterson gives them about like cleaning your room, and it does improve their lives because it's just like basic dad advice. You know what I mean?
It's a good
but-
idea to clean your room.
So they see that that's working.
Like
They're like,
dad.
okay, well, the advice that Jordan Peterson gives me works. I clean my room and now I feel like happier. I feel more organized. So therefore, I'm going to just now trust everything this guy tells me and just fall for it all, hook, line, and sinker. It's like a really kind of insidious way. It's almost like it literally is like a cult brainwashing thing, because cults do that exact same thing. Like when
it's
you
also
first
part
get
of,
into
like,
a cult,
the alt-right funnel. Like he's
Yes.
more down the funnel. And there's Joe Rogan's come up in news recently because of his massive Bernie Sanders interview, where like he normally
Yeah.
gets, I don't know, 1 million views, and he got like 8 and counting million views on this one interview of Bernie Sanders, which has
Right.
been a good interview. It was fine. It was positive. But he also has people like George Peterson,
Alex
Jordan
Jones.
Peterson, and like Alex Jones and other
Yeah.
people on his show, and he doesn't necessarily believe these things, but he also doesn't fight back against them. So it's been this very big back and forth between in my circles anyway, leftists, about like the value of going on this show. But
yeah,
it's
yeah.
part of the funnel regardless. And so
Oh
it's
yeah,
this whole
I got
big,
shit
weird,
just
dumb
for
thing.
talking to Destiny, who's like a liberal, and there's like, well, the whole question is like, are you like somehow platforming or normalizing someone's ideas if you like engage
Yeah.
in discussion with them? So like some people are like, and I feel like there is some truth to that. There's definitely some danger to that if you're talking to like an outright fascist Nazi, you
Mhm.
know, because like you don't even want to give that kind of thought any attention at
Or
all,
Alex
because
Jones,
it's like,
yeah.
yeah, Alex Jones is a great example too. Yeah. Although, like, if you had the chance to go like troll Alex Jones on his show, would you take it, Ryan? I was thinking about this the other day.
No, it would hurt me in like professional ways, in like emotional ways, in social ways.
Yeah,
In this,
That's probably
speaking of the
real danger.
I was talking about the skeptical community before. They talk about that a lot in the skeptical community, like some of the bigger names and many people believe that it's just a bad idea to go and debate people like people who think that aliens are
Bill
visiting
Nye
us,
went
or
to the Creationist Museum. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, like creationists. It's just a lot of skeptics just believe like just don't debate them, even though you might be an experienced debater, you might be able to destroy them. Just don't do it because you're giving them a platform.
Oh yeah.
So
Well, a
And
great
that's
example.
the
That's
core-
the flat Earth thing.
Yeah.
I like
Sorry,
how
I thought you were
just
keep on
like-
going.
I just
Like,
felt real smart for like half a second there.
so.
Simultaneous agreement.
The main thing there is the platform given to these nefarious, or whatever you want to say, forces, and also your ability to reach otherwise unreachable people, and that's often the major pivot there.
Yeah.
I think that for you to reach, tell me what you think. Like for you to really reach people who are like so far gone like that, like people who are just like completely quote unquote unreachable, you need people who have like very specific skills and experience. Like you'd probably need to deprogram for instance, a flat earther. You'd probably need somebody who was a flat earth, or somebody who really like can, I don't know, like you need somebody who really can. Most people can't do it, I guess is my point.
No, it'd have to be a whole program. Yeah.
Right.
There's sort of a I don't know if you'd call it an ethos or just a general saying that I use to think about when I'm talking about like whether I can change people's minds, and it's that you can't reason someone into a position that they didn't reason themselves into, or you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought about that.
Yeah, and a lot of these things are not. They're core, like fundamental beliefs that people have, that they came to these things because of some other worldview that they have. And it's and so the way you change people's minds is by eating away at the foundation of that, and in other ways,
right.
you know, and attacking them directly. There's lots of scientific evidence that shows that attacking those core fundamental values that people have, worldviews that people have, actually makes them double down. I think we've seen that all over the internet all the time nowadays. I think that's why you have so much dichotomy and so many insular echo chamber type communities that exist now. It's just because you just double down. Like,
I think, well, yeah, and I think the truth, like the prospect of truth, there to me there has to be at least some degree of cognitive dissonance going on with a lot of these people.
Sure.
And I say this as myself because I used to believe a lot of shit that was just complete horse shit, and I definitely had cognitive dissonance going on at the time. But like Cadme just said, if you want to cure a flat earther, send them on a rocket into space. And this is an example where I think that's going on, because like there are some flat earther YouTubers, and then there will be like anti-flat earther YouTubers who are pilots, and they'll say like, come on my plane and I will fly you around the earth and I will show you. And then the flat earther responds by saying like, yeah, you'll just murder me. You think I'm gonna get in a plane with you? I don't. It's like they go farther away into like the weird, wacky.
Did it himself. Like he sent like a balloon or a rocket, I can't remember, up with a camera on it, and he saw like the event horizon, like, and he was he didn't believe
the curvature of the lens.
Curvature, yeah. He didn't believe what he did himself.
Well, it's so much more complicated with people like that who are luminaries in those types of communities, like, because it's so much more complicated. They have so much invested in these types of beliefs.
Or their lifestyle.
It might be their income. It might be their job. You know, if you're like a YouTuber and you make flat videos. And
I'm not willing to go so far as to say that I think that they're deliberately deceiving other people, but I think they're deceiving themselves.
Yeah.
And did any of you watch? And this might have to be the last point that we make before we wrap up. But did you guys? There's a documentary on Netflix, I think, recently about flat earthers, and they just followed some of the big names.
Nope. Would never watch that.
Well, it was sort of like exposing it was like they did a documentary following some of the biggest names in like the YouTube and podcasting communities and flat earthers. It was really big. It might have been on HBO instead of Netflix, but either way, one of the people there, and it was one of the things that they followed throughout the whole documentary, is they set up experiments. They were trying to like it felt like they were making good faith efforts to test these ideas, and they set up this whole experiment, and it was a well-designed experiment. Like they were going to set up these things where they were shooting lights and taking cameras and pictures and all this kind of stuff to detect whether there was a curvature in the earth and all this kind of stuff. And they were saying, you know, like if it's not flat, then there will be this thing. And the experiment was really well designed as an experiment. And what happened was that they showed, like, the thing that they said, this will happen. If there is a curvature to the earth, this will happen. And it happened.
Yeah.
Okay? Because obviously there's curvature to the earth. So it happened.
You don't say.
And what they did, instead of coming back and saying, well, I guess we were wrong, they moved the goalpost. They said, okay, well, then we must have done something wrong, or there must be a flaw in our experiment, or blah, blah, blah. We'll go back to the drawing board and we'll come up with another one. And that's what happens. And that's, like, literally, they can't even reason themselves out of these beliefs.
Well, it's remarkable to me because I've gone through those processes myself.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I've been kind of deprogrammed from so many bullshit ideas, and I remember going through that process, and I remember resisting the change.
Yeah.
So it's like
Behind the Curve, 135 Aldebaran. I think I said that.
Aldebaran.
Wrong.
Aldebaran.
Said in that was the
Aldebaran.
name of the documentary. If
Aldebaran.
anybody's interested and wants to see it, it's called Behind the Curve. I found it really, really interesting. So.
Well, if you want to watch it here in Vietnam with me, you'll have to come to me in a straight line to watch it with me. I don't know. Come on. I was trying to get us out of there.
I want to hear.
I don't have a soundboard.
I want our listeners to email us and tell us what
planning a YouTube
superstitions. Tell us what superstitions you guys have. Seriously, I'm really interested. I think those are really fascinating. So, here we go. All right, we are at the end of the show, fellas. How do you feel about that?
Hello.
Yeah, so that's it for the show. So as you know, this week's theme was myths and legends. If you want to vote on what the show's future themes are going to be, then you should head on over to our Discord server or on Twitter, where we'll have the poll up. We make a poll every week, and that's how we figure it out. Next week's theme has already been decided, and I'm going to find out what it is. Did you know... While I'm finding that out, did you know that we aren't the ones who decide what the topics to be voted on are going to be? They are decided another way. How are they decided?
You decide.
That's right. You guys decide. What we do is in the after party, we have everybody sort of come up with some theme ideas, and we put them on a poll, and we throw them out there for everybody to vote on. So if you want something to end up on that poll, you need to show up to the live show for the after party. Next week's theme is going to be condiments. That's right.
Oh my God.
That's right.
All right.
Condiments.
That'll be fun and exciting. Make sure you don't miss that one. Ketchup and mustard. And
catch
mayonnaise.
up to
maybe.
with the past 18
Mustard.
episodes. You must read. I don't know.
I relish the thought of the next episode.
Oh, we need to save these jokes for episode 20.
JBY ketchup.
Yeah, just bring your condiments.
God.
All right,
No one's gonna watch
our
this.
after party is where we're going to do that in just a minute. Find our email and Twitter at jbyc.net. Watch us live on YouTube at youtube.com/jbyc show every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, or listen to the podcast wherever you get podcasts. I think that's it for me, Bobby, my best friend, Ryan, and my second best friend, The Edge. Well, you know, the thing is that distance.
Hierarchy.
Wow. We were joking before. He just like solidified it in stone.
No. It's true.
The thing is,
I have been
it's
distant.
science, okay? Can you bear with me for a second?
No, we're
Distance,
supposed to be leaving.
distance, does not really actually make the heart grow fonder. So that's what.
Hi,
Long-term-
everybody.
So long distance relationships will never work.
Yeah, that's exactly.
If you're in a
what I'm
long distance
saying.
relationship, give up. Sorry.
What have I done?
Long distance relationships are a superstition.